Hey guys, it's Kurjun here again. I'm not gonna be able to do in-depth analysis of each team. I've had a lot of stuff come up with new patches, looking for team and a bunch of other stuff. So I figured for World Cup content, I would give you guys another VOD, but this time I'm gonna do predictions based on the World Cup. So I'm gonna basically walk through my predictions for the World Cup as a whole versus just in general each team base analysis. Like I've written down stuff about each team's play style and I'll go through that and I'll go through where they were ranked, what their strength of group stage was, and the meta that's upcoming. And then I'll give my predictions and I have a few upset potentials and a few other things. So I'll go through all that. So first things first is barring any major changes, the patch we're on now is probably what we're going to see at BlizzCon. So if Mercy gets a slight nerf in some way, not saying it's going to be a major one, but if she gets a slight nerf to balance her out versus everything else, I still think she's going to be a must play because of how her mechanic works. I think Lucio will actually see a lot less play, which is going to hurt some teams, but it's going to help others. My two meta prediction comps for this are going to be for the first one is going to be Winston, Diva, Pharah, Widow, Ana, and Mercy, and you're running a double sniper dive, so it's dive pick comp. The Widow hard counters Pharah Mercy. Ana also helps counter uh, Mercy and Pharah. You might see teams that don't have a Pharah player maybe run Genji in the slot, but I think everything else is pretty much just a dive pick. You're looking to get in onto the Mercy, or you're looking to get in onto something. If it turns into a mirror of this comp, you're going to look to dive the Widow, and then it's going to be on like Widow outplay. You might see a lot of counter dive. With Diva's changes, she becomes an assassin who actually helps Winston a lot more in the initial upfront burst, and the two of them with a single Pharah splash should be able to kill almost anybody. Mercy's obviously just going to tempo res this, but that gives you a 30-second window after you threw all your burst in that you should be able to outweight class the backline and get another pick, preferably on the Mercy. If not, your Widow's going to get a pick based on the brawl. Your Widow's probably not going to be aiming for the dive target. She's going to be looking for targets of opportunity. If there's a counter dive, it gets a little bit wishy-washy, but it's the same concept. Ana's there to pocket from range or pocket the Widow. Mercy's there to pocket Pharah, and the tanks, they dive in. The other comp, and I tweeted out about this, and I think spam is just retardedly broken. If Diva's defense matrix isn't changed or there isn't another mitigation mechanic, I legitimately think we're just going to see spam comps. Even with the tire nerf to Junkrat, I think that spam is just way overpowered on defense. I think that legitimately the only way to fight spam is with spam. The sheer burst you have from 100 energy Zarya, a Pharah, and a Junkrat is completely and utterly asinine. And Ryan still has the best shield out of everybody, even with the Orisa buffs. So, like, Ryan being able to move just trumps Orisa being able to have, I think it's like 400 more shield. So you're going to probably see if the first comp I mentioned doesn't go, it's probably going to be Ryan, Zarya, Pharah, Junkrat, Ana, Mercy with Genji and Widow thrown in there, depending on what the opposing team is running. And I have a prediction those are going to be the meta comps. So with that in mind, and that being my prediction, this means Tracer is inherently bad. Tracer is actually really bad against both of those compositions, and Tracer's play is going to drop. Tracer is still going to be retardedly overpowered, but she's bad into both of those compositions. So we're going to see a decline in Tracer play. So this means Sinatra, Soon, Tavik, Whoosh, Manitin, uh, Surefour. Like, Canada's the only, like, legitimately, this is Canada's patch. Like, if this goes through and everything goes, like, this is Canada's to win. This is legitimately Canada's tournament to win. Um, with the downplay of Lucio and this dive metric being able to coordinate and everything. But Tracer play suffers, so you're going to see teams that have this great Tracer play suffer, and they won't do as well as they did. So, getting into it, we're going to talk about team seeds and the strength of opponents they played in the group stage. So, we're going to start with China. China was the rank 1 seed going into this tournament, number 1 global. And in the group stage, they played in the Shanghai qualifier, and I have their matches. So everybody who was in the Shanghai qualifier that they played against and that France played against, I have it as a 3.5 out of 5. It's not bad. It's a remotely difficult group. Um, Russia was in that group, or no, not Russia. Let's just go to the Shanghai qualifier and we can talk about it. Boop, boop, boop. The reason I rated this group so high was Denmark being an entire team, France, Thailand was in this group, Norway was in this group. I did a video on China versus Norway. Hong Kong was also in this group. Actually, outside of one or two teams in Romania and Argentina, I think this was a really, really strong group. I think this was originally like one of the harder groups. But the way the brackets fell and everything, with Argentina and Romania being opposite of each other, and then Hong Kong and Denmark being opposite of each other, I feel like it made Norway and China, Thailand and France like dead head ahead of each other. But that final four, I honestly could have seen it go either way. Like if Thailand doesn't get the draw, maybe we see Thailand upset France or China. If Norway upsets China, this plays out completely different. So that's why I have it as a 3.5 out of 5. And then we're going to go back. And next, we're going to talk about Sweden and Australia. So, for the Sydney qualifier with Sydney and Australia going in, so Sweden was rank 5 globally. France was ranked 8th globally, by the way. So, France was ranked 8 with a 3.5 out of 5 in the group stage. Australia and Sweden. Sweden was ranked 5th overall, and Australia was ranked 13th. You can see it right here in their global ratings. Oh, Sweden was ranked 4. I have it put as 5. My bad. I will change that now. So, Sweden was 4. Um, they're expected to get out of group. Not a real shocker there. Australia was not, in my opinion, expected to get out of groups. I think Australia basically came in, and Finland, Vietnam, Spain, these three were really strong teams, in my opinion. Like, Vietnam has an 0-3 stat line, but I feel that arguably Vietnam could have upset this group if they had played correctly. I feel like Japan was also very strong. So this group actually gets a 4 to a 4.5 out of 5. Like this was the strongest group. This was the group of death in the group stages, in my opinion. I don't think there's a bad team in this entire group. I think that every single one of these teams had potential. Arguably, Sweden was the favorite with Finland, in my opinion, but I feel like every single one of these teams could have won this. Every single one. Portugal included, and Spain. Um, so that covers them. And now we're going to go to the big three. This one, I feel like this group robbed the World Cup, to be honest. This group right here. I feel like the last group, the group of death, and this group robbed the World Cup. But people are there, they're there. All right, so we're going to talk about South Korea, rank 2, behind China. Not a big shocker there. Canada, rank 7 in the world. I actually have this group as a 2.5 out of 5. I think this is actually one of the easier groups. Outside of Russia, I went through and I looked at some of these teams, and there's some good players, but they're all mashups. Like, there's nothing like a rogue. There's nothing like maybe all the Turkey players play together. I don't know. But outside of South Korea and Russia and like China, or not China, South Korea, China, or South Korea, Canada, and Russia. I don't think there was really much competition in this group, and I feel like it came down to Canada, Russia, and China, or God, I keep saying China, South Korea, Russia, and Canada fighting it out for who goes to BlizzCon. And I feel that Russia not going to BlizzCon is a real travesty in my opinion. I actually don't think they would have won going into uh the the group stages, the playoffs, but I feel like they were definitely a name that should have been at the World Cup that isn't. So, getting back to Canada and South Korea, like I said, I think this is one of the easier groups out of the four. Definitely, Sweden and Australia had the group of death, in my opinion, and then China's and France's was really close. But I think this is like the third easiest group. Like, if you're these three teams, this is a group you want to be in. All right, now we're going to go to the Santa Monica qualifier. All right, so the USA is third in the world, and United Kingdom sixth in the world. Both, in my opinion, are projected to get out of this group. Not a contest, no question. I think this is the easiest group to predict. I actually have this rated as a 1 to a 1.5 out of 5 at strength of opponents. I think that if both of these teams don't make it out of this group with the record they have, they're laughing stocks of the world. I think Taiwan was the only team that could have given them a run for their money, and in my opinion, I think Taiwan did. But I still think it's blatantly obvious with Germany and Taiwan that they were second places to what was going on in the group. All right, so that covers the groups, the strength, and how I evaluated stuff. So, in my opinion, with after talking about what meta I think is going to be played at the Blizzard World Cup, the Overwatch World Cup, and I've done videos on teams and everything. I'm going to cover briefly each team. Like China, as I said in my one review, they're aggro brawlers that favor high-speed fights and metas, higher mechanical skill but low team play. The first comp I mentioned, the Winston Diva Dive with Pharah, arguably that could be really, really good for China. I don't see China succeeding with the Ryan Zarya Pharah Junkrat combo, but hey, maybe they're masters of chaos and that comp benefits them. I think this benefits China. I think this meta benefits China. All right, France. It's fucking Rogue. Is triple DPS good or is triple DPS bad? Like 100% this is going to come down to the 2 DPS because I don't think you can get away with running triple DPS anymore. With Mercy, if Mercy does not get changed, you can. If Mercy gets a soft nerf to either Rez or Valkyrie, I don't think you can. So, with that in mind, I think Rogue comes down to will they be able to play a second tank with Nox? Can Nico, Soon, and AKM all play a second tank with Nox that is good? A Zarya, a Diva, a Roadhog, and Orisa, something. They have to be able to play something that sucks up space, sucks up ass. Rogue loves to excel in flanks. I think Soon suffers from this patch. I don't care how good Soon is. I would arguably put Soon as one of the best tracers in the world. I think this patch hurts him. I legitimately think as Tracer, you cannot play Tracer into that comp and profit. Your value goes down exponentially. Um, the big question I have for Rogue right now is, and I'm just going to call him Rogue, I'm not going to call him France. Calling him France is an injustice to fucking France. The fact that Rogue was a team made it so that they were instantly locked as Team France, so Rogue. The question for Rogue here is can they run double hit scan and can they shut down people playing Pharmacy and can they stop other people playing Widow? I don't know if AKM's Widow and Nico's Genji is going to be good enough to stop a Pharah and a Widow being played at the same time, or a Pharah and a Junkrat being played at the same time. So arguably with Soon being worse, I think Soon gets relegated to the second tank. I think you play Nico and AKM as the tank DPS, and that's going to determine if Rogue does good or bad. All right, so Sweden is Misfits plus Chips Hodgin. I actually think this is an upgrade for Misfits. Legitimately, if they can get away with running 4-2 or 3-1-2, 3 tanks, 1 DPS, Misfits can do really, really well at the World Cup. But I don't predict you being able to run that third tank. I don't think the third tank outweighs DPS, especially if Mercy and Ana is the new support pair. I think that Lucio is a big core mechanic to tank comps. And are you going to drop this OP Mercy or this god tier Mercy to run a Lucio with an Ana if you're Misfits / Sweden here? I don't think you do. Like, legitimately, I think right now, Sweden suffers from the patch. I think Sweden gets cucked by the patch, not by the skill of their players. I think this is going to come down to how hard can Tvik carry. Like how good is Tvik? This is Tvik's World Cup to prove he is one of the top three in the world. He's been hyped up for an entire year. Can he do it? That's Tvik right now. It's legitimately Sweden slash Misfits. All right, so let's talk about Australia. All right, Australia. I'm not trying to be insulting here. It's Blanky Sports. It's the entire roster. I watched actually two of their World Cup VODs to get a good grasp of them. Understand, if they have any standouts, like I just talked about Tvik. This team is, and I'm not being insulting when I say this, because this is actually a very good thing. They're an average meta team. If they can play the meta really, really well and they figure out what the meta is instantaneously, Australia will be okay. They will not be great, but they will be okay. They might pull off an upset. They might be able to win a game they shouldn't have. But I do not think mechanically, individually, there are any standouts on this roster. I think that this is 100% a team coordination, meta composition team that it's going to come down to if they know the meta or not. And can they execute it? So, South Korea. South Korea is the team play team. They are literally the upgraded version of Australia. That's why I said I'm not trying to be mean to Australia, but when you compare Australia to South Korea, it's not even close. These people are on two different teams, but they function as a cohesive unit. Literally, if you put these two teams together, they still function. You could put these people in Apex. You could put this team in Owl, and there would be no questions. There's no nothing. They've been taught the same system. They know the same system. They have people investing time in them to work on their team play. Arguably, Rouge Hong, Toby look a mess in the back line. I covered that in my South Korea review. Versus Russia, I definitely feel that South Korea has exploitable potential in the back line, but just in general, the just raw player skill slash team play from this team in general. This is this is your number one. I should win it all seed. Like not going off of World Cup rank, SR rank, whatever it is. This is your win it all. This is the guy who's going to win it all. But we'll get into that in a minute. All right, Canada. Canada has the best chance of winning the World Cup outside of South Korea. This is literally Canada's World Cup to lose. They have a meta that is literally set up for them to succeed. They have the three best flex players in Canada and three world-class flex players. Surefour and Mangachu's hero pools are fucking gigantic. XQC is already a fucking aggressive monkey. If the first comp, if you put Surefour on Widow, you put Mangachu on Pharah, you put Rolf on Ana, and you put Joe Meister on Mercy, I legitimately think Canada walks over everyone who cannot stop Mangachu. I think Surefour opens up so many windows because everybody's going to do the we've got to stop Mangachu, we got to stop Mangachu, we got to stop Mangachu. Legitimately, Surefour and Agilities are going to thrive in this, and you could see Agilities playing D.Va, because D.Va is more of a flanker now. D.Va is actually arguably along the caliber of Genji now. She will just insta-blow somebody up, and if you have somebody with Agility's mechanical skill, I could see it fitting. XQC's Aggressive Monkey, I legitimately think that comp is Canada's comp. And they can also run the other variant as well, with Pharah Junkrat, because they have Agility, Surefour, and Mangachu. It doesn't matter what three you put where in that comp. I think it literally just does it. With Rolf and Joe Meister, I think that you just put Rolf on the Ana and have him play like a support sniper, and Joe Meister just pockets whoever his hard carry is between Agilities, Surefour, and Mangachu. And they should just walk over everybody. Like I said, this is Canada's tournament to lose. Big note here. I know personalities on this team. I got the story between US and Canada. I know about the show match that was literally just the US fucking overhyping it via a sponsor. This team should not have lost that game on paper. That team should not have beat this team on paper at that event. This is literally Canada's event to lose. But knowing the personalities on that team, if this turns into a troll or a washout of bad comps and people lose faith, Canada will choke. Canada will lose. And it will be a very, very big upset. But hey, they're the Canadians. They'll just laugh it off. They'll enjoy their free ticket to BlizzCon. but it's their tournament to lose. Legitimately, I think Canada should actually upset South Korea, but I'll get into that in a little bit. All right, so moving on. USA. It's the young kids. This is the miracle team. If I have to put it in, this is the Miracle on Ice hockey team, the Overwatch edition. This is literally all of the young kids with a strong ass support core. Like, not getting into the politics of it, but Adam and Raucus, with Raucus's shot calling and leadership, Adam's ability to just outright do whatever, these four people should be able to do their job. Sinatra, Jake, Cool Matt, and Fact Fiction. I think Sinatra gets really, really bad this patch, though. I covered the Tracer thing. I don't think Sinatra can do his job, and I think Sinatra actually arguably should be subbed out of this roster. I think you take Sinatra out and you put a Baby Bay or you put a strong 76 into this roster, and I don't think Sinatra's it. Like a DeFran, a Baby Bay. I don't even know if those dudes are USA citizens, but you need that hit scan, and Jake has to be the fair player here. And that's USA. This is the high-end talent. Every single one of these players is a high caliber. I don't want to use the word one trick because it's insulting to them because they're world caliber one tricks. Every single one of these players is known for a fucking hero in the United States. Tracer, May, Rhine, Lucio, Mercy, and I'd argue Jake doesn't really have one, but I would still say he's Pharah. He's Genji. He's something in there. Jake is our agilities, in my opinion, outside of Zachary. But I definitely feel like the United States suffers playing Sinatra here. So that's probably the best thing the USA can do. Like, legitimately, I respect Sinatra a shit ton. I think he is arguably the best tracer in the world. But I think playing him in this roster, you lose partially if you can't run the tracer. If tracer does fall out of meta, you legit just lose outright. All right, so United Kingdom. This team legitimately, I have an issue with this team. Like, the United Kingdom team, I went through the players, like you see my purple marks, I went through and I checked on people, and I was looking at it, and I was reviewing the United Kingdom, and I was trying to think of how do I describe the United Kingdom. This is the team I think that got lucky. This is the team I think that lucked out. Again, going back to the strength of the opponents in the groups, it was a 1.5. It was the easiest out of all four groups. The only team that you have to compete against is the United States, and they are seated opposite of you in the bracket. I think the United Kingdom was given this spot. I feel that they lack, like Kib not being on this World Cup roster, I think is a huge letdown. I think that there's two or three other players that you arguably could make a case for our Hail Mary at winning this, but I don't see the United Kingdom winning it. They don't really have a team identity like, Misfits, Sweden, Misfits plus Chips, or Rogue, or South Korea, or Canada. They don't have an identity, and I have a really tough time seeing an identity from them and them doing well. All right, so we're going to go into the bracket now, and we're going to talk about it. So, United Kingdom versus Sweden. I think this is Sweden's map. I think just Sweden wins. I have Sweden winning 3-1. I don't think it'll be close. I think the United Kingdom pulls off an upset. If they do, I really do just want to say a 4-0 for Sweden. But, it's for Overwatch, so I'm going to go with a 3-1 for Sweden. Sweden advances. And it's pretty much, I just think Misfits plus Chips is going to fucking run over United Kingdom. I don't think they have the ability to stop them. So Sweden advances. Canada versus Australia. I have Canada winning this 4-0. I think Canada, like I said, it's either Canada wins this 4-0 or Canada loses 0-4. It's going to come down to the Canadians throwing or not. I think the Canadians, legitimately will run this tournament. The bracket is set up right now, and before I swap to the next side of the bracket, I'll tell you, after I predict the 4-0 for Canada, the way this bracket is set up right now, with Blizzard at its discretion, they need to move South Korea, the United States, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. If they don't do that, we will not have a good final. I don't mind South Korea and the United States playing in the first round. I think this is great. I think this is actually the hyphiest match of this entire set. But I think putting China, France, South Korea, and the United States on the same side of the bracket makes the finals and the third place match a joke. Because arguably all four of these teams can be in all four of these slots, and I feel that three of these teams do not belong in the finals or the third place match. And I feel like it's really painful to see the bracket set up this way. All right, so moving along. China versus France. This is actually, I think, the highlight premier matchup of the tournament. I legitimately think that if Rogue can do Rogue, I actually legit think they can play China to China's game, which is that brawly, fast, high speed, marked system. I have France and China. It's either going to be a 3-1 or a 3-2 for China. I think that it could possibly go, when we look at the first map being hybrid, I think that if China or France coin flip and it comes down to China getting map pick and China wins first map, I think France gets the second pick and they win control. And then 2CP comes down to what is China comfortable with. I think China really, really will take it to Hanamura or something like that, and they'll just fucking run over fucking Rogue. If not, I think Rogue has a chance to upset them there, but I think China just wins the rest of the set unless they tilt. So I have China advancing, like I said, 3-2. I think China versus Rogue will be a very, very good game. All right, so let's talk about the big elephant in the room: South Korea versus the United States. If the United States had a different hit scan player outside of Sinatra, I would actually call this a 2-2. With Sinatra on the United States roster as it sits right now, this is a 3-1 for South Korea. I think the United States upsets them on one map, pulls it out of their ass. It's probably going to be the 2CP because it's third in the set. So you'll see it go South Korea, United States, South Korea. It'll be a 3-1. And like I said, it's just a travesty that these four teams are all on the same side of the bracket. I feel like it robs the finals and third place match so much because of how this is seeded. I don't think this is seeded correctly at all. If it's seeded by rating, you have 1, 2, 3. I think it was the United States was 3. And 5 or 6 all on the same side of the bracket. It's just way, way, way so heavy on the bottom side of this bracket. And it's like the bracket of death for any of these teams. I legitimately could see any of these teams, if anybody's having a bad day, just running, literally making it to the finals and the free finals. Because if Canada doesn't show up, who's going to stop you? So, all right, we've predicted that stuff. Sorry to tell you, the United Kingdom, you're going to enjoy your trip to BlizzCon. Aussies, the Australians, I predict you losing to Canada, but do me a favor, upset them. Legitimately, I want Australia to come in and cheeky cunt the fuck out of their brothers from the fucking from the colonies, man. I want you to rough your older brother up. I actually want to see Australia take a map off Canada. I'm not predicting they will, but I think I want to see it. So Aussies, do that for me. Enjoy BlizzCon, get drunk, have fun. Do you, boo-boo. Alright, moving on. So that puts us with Canada versus Sweden. Canada versus Sweden, I have as a 3-1 for Canada. The reason I have as a 3-1 for Canada is I highlighted it earlier with Sweden Misfits plus Chips. Their composition. If they can run 3 tanks, Sweden can run the fuck over this entire tournament because I believe Chips arguably is an upgrade here. The issue I have is that I don't think you can run Trip Tank right now. And I've looked at all 3 of these players, and I think it comes down to can Tavik. It's literally Tavik versus Surefour Agilities and Mangachu. If this becomes a dive-centric, heavy DPS meta, is Tavik's McCree, Widow, or 76 strong enough to counter all 3 of them at the same time? If Mangachu, Agilities, and Surefour bring their A game, and they can deal with Tavik, and they can deal with Reinforce, and they can deal with Maniton, I think that they just run over this team. I think that this turns into Canada just blowing Sweden out. If Tavik shows up, I think they upset one map. But I still think it goes in Canada's favor unless they troll. Alright, so let's talk. Like I said, I predicted 3-1 South Korea over the United States, and I predict 3-1 or 3-2 for China. I think France is a really, really strong shot here, but I think China edges them. So China versus South Korea. This is legitimately, hands down, a 4-0 for South Korea. I think China is good. I think that if they wound up playing the Americans, they have a chance to take it 4-0. But this is South Korea playing a strong, strong economic controlled metagame with an aggressive support duo. I don't think Pine and Flower are going to have any issue brawling into China, and I think that it's a really, really big mistake if China takes that route. So I have predicting a 4-0 for South Korea. So that gives us third place match. That gives us Sweden versus China. Sweden versus China could actually turn into a really, really, really good match if Sweden starts playing 4-2 into China. Arguably, tanks are worse right now, but if you're playing for third place, national pride, I don't know if there's a prize pool, anything like that, but if you want to have fun, you could play 4-2, 3-1-2 into China, and I actually legitimately think Sweden can take this 3-1 over China. I think China will do really, really well, but if they get 0-4'd by South Korea, they'll be, in my opinion, falling apart. I don't think they will have a strong showing. Sweden versus Canada is arguably not as harsh, but when you're the Chinese and you see South Korea as your only competition and rival, um, in my opinion, with their mentality, I think that it hurts if you lose to them that badly. I don't think they'll rebound. So, like I said, I predict third place will be Sweden 3-1 over China, maybe 4-0 over China. It'll be something like that. Could be 3-2 if I think about the maps, actually. It depends on who wins first map, but I still think Sweden takes it. So, let's talk about the finals. South Korea versus Canada. Okay, go back up to the rosters here. So, South Korea versus Canada. There is a reason that I think. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say it outright. It's South Korea wins 4-0. South Korea beats Canada 4-0. I have a strong feeling, and this is my pure analyst and pure gut feeling. I think Canada falls apart late in the tournament and starts playing to have fun and starts flexing random shit and just enjoys the time. They've made it to the finals. It's the South Koreans. Who the fuck cares? If they have that mentality, it's a 4-0 for South Korea. I wish it wasn't going to happen, but with the knowledge of the people, the map order, the strong tank play of South Korea, it's probably really cut and dry that if South Korea starts winning, it's going to be a 4-0 and Canada's just going to have fun. Okay, so that's my bracket. So I have South Korea 1, Canada 2, Sweden 3, and China 4. And then everybody else is out. So, we're going to talk about this real quick before I get into this. So, I am going to also give black horses here, dark horses, whatever the hell you want to say. Things that can happen that are in my scope that I think there's a possibility. And I'm not talking a 1% chance. I'm talking there's a reasonable actual shot of this happening. And I've highlighted key points about each roster and why I think they'll do good, why I think they'll do bad. First, my first one is I actually believe that there is a small fraction of a chance that Australia upsets Canada because Canada starts playing off meta picks, trying to rely on mechanics, and Australia, like I said, they are just a good, strong meta team. Just plays the meta and outplays them. And I have Aussies could upset Canada. I really want to see it. I'm not predicting it. Again, I'll reiterate, I'm predicting a 3-1 or a 4-0. Legitimately a 4-0 for Canada here. But I just would love to see Aussies upset Canada. All right, so let's go to the next one, and this is the big one. United States upset South Korea. With Sinatra on the roster, I don't think they can happen. If they swap in a better hit scan player with Jake, and they can run double hit scan into Flower and Sebiolbi, I think that South Korea actually loses. I think that South Korea actually will probably lose 1-3 if that's to happen. Again, Sebiolbi is the same as Sinatra in my opinion. I feel like he is a god tier strong tracer, but I don't see anything else out of him. Flower is god tier like Jake. Flower, Jake, Surefour, Mangachu, Tavik. AKM. I think that those players are arguably your I can play whatever the fuck you want me to heroes or players. So, like, I genuinely think that the tracers are going to be the issue here. So, like I said, USA could upset 3-1 if they take Sinatra out of the roster. And somebody's going to say, you're an idiot, you're stupid. Like, I just, there are other people who are better on the other hit scans. And if you're playing Sinatra purely for Tracer into a Tracer bad meta, make the swap before the World Cup. Make the swap. Sinatra did great. Keep him as a seventh, but I don't think he's your best option to win as the United States. All right, my final one is, well, not really final. There's two more. All right, so Tavik upsets Canada, and I'm phrasing it this way for one reason: is if Tavik goes Widow, McCree, one of the two, and Canada is playing Genji, Widow, Pharah with a Mercy, or any variant of that with a Pharah, any variant of that with the Genji, and Tavik hard counters at least two of the three hard carries for Canada, and XQC cannot contain him. So it's going to literally be 4 versus Tavik, in my opinion, in this upset scenario. If Tavik can counter that and hard carry it and prove that he is top 3 player world, like he's been hyped up for a year. I agree Tavik is a monster. If the monster comes out, it'll be like Shadowburn last year, where Shadowburn hard carried a set that Russia had no business winning. If Tavik can do that and shut down two of the 3 DPS and then 3 of the 4 on the people, I feel like it puts immense pressure on everybody else, and Tavik can upset Canada. So we'll talk about the final match, my final quote-unquote predicted upset, and we'll talk about it real quick. I legitimately think if Canada does not succumb to the mind game, they play comps that I just mentioned to a top tier. They play away from the Lucio, use Joe Meister and Rolf's ability to frag and play smart support play. And they do a battle buddy system for Surefour and Mangachu, and XQC and Agility sort of play the I will clean everything up, but I don't need a pocket. I legit think that this meta favors Canada to actually upset South Korea. And it is what I hope. Legitimately, after thinking about it, doing all of my research, talking about teams, looking at everything, Canada is legitimately, outside of the US, the only team that has a shot of upsetting South Korea. And again, if the United States plays Sinatra, I think that they don't have that chance. I think that if Canada plays their game with this roster, they don't have to swap anybody. Literally, this is their meta. I think that this literally is Canada's patch. Everything goes, and they can undo Sebe, Olby, Flower, Rouge Hung, and Toby. Because I don't think Zumba and Mono are going to be able to play that control-y style when you have 3 flankers slash a Widow as Canada. I just think you just pick them apart. And South Korea has to flex to weird stuff. It breaks apart Rouge Hong and Toby's, you know, I just sit here and heal everybody and throw grenades and shoot at you because I can, because you can't apply pressure. That comp gives you the ability to apply pressure. And if you put Surefour on Widow, I think that he's just going to find picks. So I legitimately think my 4 big upsets, like I said, are going to be Australia upsetting Canada, US upset South Korea if they change roster, Tavik upsets Canada, and then Canada upsets South Korea. So, legitimately, I still am going to go ahead. I'm going to pull this over here so y'all can see. This is my picks. This is my thought process and everything. This is what I went through. This is what I talked about. I legitimately think this is going to come down to everything I've highlighted. I think that sadly, like when you look at strength of group, I think the USA and United Kingdom had it easy. I don't think they did really well. I think it was just a free group. I think that Canada and South Korea had a free group, but I still feel like those are the 2 strongest teams going into this. I think Australia and Sweden had the hardest group. I think China and France are a close second, but I still think Australia has the potential to upset somebody, even though you know how things are going, but they just play strong meta play. So, like I said, this is my predictions. If you guys disagree, it's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and date this here at the bottom. 9/21 21 2017. Caps lock. Kurjun's picks. Lock it in. I will say this real quick. If there is a huge patch for Mercy, or we get a new hero or a new map, or the rules change, or they change how this is all done, I'll do a new video. But I'm gonna lock this in for now on 9/21. Hope you guys enjoyed. There's more Overwatch content all over my channel, so if you want to see something, just comment. If not, have a good one.